Earlier this year, I had the honor of officiating the wedding of a very close friend. It was a beautiful wedding, and it was up in St. Louis, so they did it kind of northern style. It was followed by a formal seated reception dinner. Walking into that reception, I was greeted with a familiar scene. Little crafted name cards with table assignments written in elegant calligraphy on thick paper. I walked up, and as always in situations like this, in the back of my mind, I thought, what if I don't see my name on there? I scanned the cards and looked around and, found it, McCain. Well, for a moment, I thought that was mine, but then I realized it was my parents'. There were several McCain's at this wedding. No worries, I looked again. No name. Anxiety started to rise, not helped by the stiff tuxedo shirt and finicky studs. Did I miss something? Did I forget to RSVP? Was I just unable to read that fancy calligraphy? I searched a third time. Still no name. Did they forget me? I mean, I did not have the most important role in the wedding, but I still had a pretty essential one. Was I supposed to be here? Maybe someone picked it up by accident. Keeping the anxiety down as best I could, I found the wedding coordinator. She explained that I was at the wedding party table, where the names were already at the seats. I'd never been at the wedding party table before, and so I didn't know the custom. I walked over, and there was my name in perfect calligraphy that I could read just fine. People are social creatures. Whether we are introverts or extroverts, it's impossible to deny the pull of group dynamics on our thoughts and behaviors. Concerns like if we're included or excluded, where do we fit in with the group? All those concerns are buried deep in our evolutionary psyche, because being part of the groups means belonging, which brings safety, acceptance, and a sense of security. It is so ingrained in us that we will do almost anything to protect our place in the group. And the threat of exclusion sparks panic, and we start to react quickly to avoid that exclusion. Honor and shame, pride and ego, all these powerful forces are acting on us and shape our lives. All those things were alive in Jesus' time, and they remain alive in ours. Jesus confronted those very same tendencies in today's gospel. At a dinner with the community's elite, he saw guests jockeying for the seats of honor. They puffed themselves up, made them seem more important than they were, making fools of themselves. And in almost all the commentaries that I've read on this gospel, scholars would point out that the society in Jesus' time was different than ours. It was built on honor and shame. These dinners and banquets were essential to maintaining and reinforcing those rigid social structures. There were protocol and hospitality rules that were understood. It was a society with customs and culture that are drastically different than our own. But whatever the differences between our cultures and customs, at least one thing is the same. Those same human patterns of pride and shame are still at work on us today. Whether or not we have our rules written down, we all still understand them. It might be more subtle, but our ego nudges us to play little games that signal our place in a better seat at the table. While our participation in these ego games may be unspoken, we definitely still play them. We show off our status through things that help bolster and protect our egos. Job titles, houses, cars, clothes, products, clubs, brands. It doesn't matter what group we are part of. Once people gather, these pecking order dynamics will start to emerge. I've seen this in every community I've been a part of. And these dynamics even show up in places and in groups you might not expect. People who value minimalism and sustainability still end up comparing their possessions in an inverse way, turning simplicity into a form of competition. Athletes who say they're only focused on self-improvement and self-growth compare marathon times and personal records. Duck hunters showing off their newest duck boats and their latest decoy technology to their buddies. And not to ignore the plank in my own eye, even in the church, where humility is supposed to be a virtue, people play these ego games, comparing ministries and their successes, average Sunday attendance, to say nothing of vestments and buildings and liturgical accoutrement. No circle is immune. Whether it's first century Nazareth or today, wherever people gather, they will end up finding ways to divide, compare, and rank. So I'd like to try something out. I invite you to remember a time when you felt excluded or left out. Recall that moment. Recall what it felt like, if you can. Maybe you were the last person picked for the playground kickball team in elementary school. Perhaps you are not included in the conversation, interrupted, felt overlooked, unseen, unheard, misunderstood. Maybe you didn't get that invitation that everyone else did. Remember how that felt. Exclusion is awful. It's painful. It's a painful feeling that we would not wish on anyone. And yet somehow we forget that feeling the moment we ourselves are included. And then we participate in those cycles and repeat the same dynamics over and over again. Why are we like this? We search for worth and pride in all the wrong things, and sometimes at the expense of others. Well, I think it goes back all the way to the beginning. From the beginning of our salvation story, all the way back in Genesis, in that garden. Back then, we belonged to God. That's how we began, belonging to God. It's what we are created to be. But at some point, our ego and our independence gained just enough knowledge to be dangerous, and we started to see ourselves as separate, apart from God. And ever since then, we've been trying to return to feel secure in God's love, to belong again. But all along the way in our lives, we try to fill that missing piece with things that aren't God. We use things like esteem and wealth and power and pride and importance, often at the expense of others, as insufficient replacements for that belonging. Our egos attempt to reshape worldly things to try to fit that space that is meant only for God and God's love. But Jesus shows us a different way. Do not chase vain honors. Don't play those ego games of puffing yourself up to be more important than others. It will only lead to shame and embarrassment in the long run anyway. Instead, choose humility. Take the lowly seat. Stop playing unwinnable, rigged ego games. Luke chapter 14 has lots of stories about banquets. Right after where today's gospel lesson ends, Jesus tells another parable about another banquet. And this banquet is the heavenly feast, where invitations were sent out. The people who were too busy sent excuses to that great heavenly dinner. They were the ones still caught up playing their ego games, worried about their land, their property, their social events. The ones who ended up at that table, they were the poor, the disabled, the outcast. They were anyone and everyone who has ever felt excluded. Every Sunday we get a taste of that heavenly banquet in the Eucharist, the table where all are invited and all sit with equal honor. I invite you to think about the Eucharist as a practice. It's practice sitting at that table. As we come forward to receive communion, we can put down the demands of our ego, those constant efforts to earn esteem and affection and love and honor. We can treat our egos with kindness, remembering that they're just doing the best they can to protect us. But we can tell them, we can tell ourselves that we do not need to do anything to be included. We already are included at this table. We do not need to do anything to earn love. We are already loved at this table. We do not need to do anything to earn honor. We are already beloved children of God, and what greater honor could there be? We belong at this table, just like we belonged at the beginning of things. Once we make room by setting down the ego, that space can be filled with God and God's love in this Eucharistic meal. Then we can take that out into the world with us. We can begin to dismantle those structures of pride and exclusion that we have participated in. And when we stumble, and we will stumble, and those old patterns of pride and shame return, we come back to the table again, and we try again. Each time we are renewed. Each time we grow more fully into who we already are in God, loved, honored, belonging, and included as children of God. Amen.